hopefully this will remain an interesting presentation. So with all the progress in AI, the question I'm going to ask is, can we use it for societal benefit? And I'll focus on three areas that we've looked at: public safety and security, conservation, and public health. And in all of these, we are looking at these societal problems as multi-agent systems and asking the question, can AI be used to optimize our limited intervention resources? And so you'll see here what is called multi-agent systems reasoning, which is reasoning about multiple entities interacting with each other. And I'll give you an overview of several years of our work. So the first set of projects that I'll focus on is public safety and security. So we have a large number of targets to protect, limited security resources, how to schedule or plan or allocate our resources, taking into account a watchful adversary. And we've come up with new algorithms that have been in use by security agencies in the United States and internationally. With respect to conservation, we have large conservation areas to protect limited ranger resources. We've again contributed new algorithms. The point here is taking into account past poaching data, can we predict where poachers will set traps or snares and remove them before they kill or maim animals? And so we've done this for past several years in Uganda and Cambodia, and I'll show you some results. And also are extending the work towards combating illegal fishing or illegal logging. The third part is public health. Here we have limited number of public health resources, so health workers, for example. And the challenge that we are looking at are combating things like HIV or for preventing tuberculosis. Concrete example is work we have done in homeless shelters in Los Angeles. So we're looking at the social networks of the homeless youth. Here, the HIV rates among the homeless youth are 10 times the rates of normal house population. By using AI algorithms, we are able to identify which youth to educate about HIV so that they can spread information, and are able to show that our algorithms are far more effective in picking these youth and spreading HIV information, allowing HIV testing rates to increase. And we are extending the work towards other challenges such as suicide prevention, and I'll also talk a bit about tuberculosis prevention in India. As was mentioned, recently I've taken up this directorship for AI for social good at Google Research in India. And as part of that, we have recently held a workshop. As a result of that, several new projects have started up in terms of public health and welfare, in conservation, and in education. I'll not have time to go through all of these, but you will see common themes in all of the different projects that I have. Interdisciplinary partnerships, use of multi-agent systems reasoning, and a data to deployment pipeline. So all of this work is only possible because of the governmental and non-governmental organizations with whom we have partnered. To that end, we have really patrolled with the US Coast Guard on their boats in New York and Boston. We have really patrolled with wildlife conservation agencies in forests in Malaysia and Cambodia. Our students have spent time in homeless shelters in Los Angeles to try to understand the challenges that they have. This immersion is important to understand what kind of data to collect. Following that, a predictive model helps us make predictions about which of the cases are high risk versus low risk cases. But we can't intervene on all of the high risk cases. So for example, given the data, we may be able to predict which TB patients, for example, are falling off of treatment, are going to default on treatment. But we can't intervene on all of them. So the next prescriptive algorithm, this multi-agent systems reasoning algorithm, allows us to reason about which high-risk cases to actually intervene on. And following that, field testing and deploying our algorithms is extremely important. Not only because this tells us what might be some weaknesses in our algorithms, but because this is at the heart of AI for social impact. Without actually achieving social impact, it's not really AI for social impact. And so it's important for us not only to improve the algorithms, but also to contribute to actually deploying the algorithms and to understand how to effectively collect data. So I'm going to give you an overview of some of our research, starting from public safety and security and some of the other projects. And you'll see there's some edited books if you wanted to read more. I'll also give credit to my PhD students and postdocs. So if you see some pictures on the top right-hand corner, they're the ones who led that particular project. So let's begin with public safety and security. So this is work that I'm describing from over 13, 14 years ago. This is the chief of airport police at the time, Errol Southers, at the Los Angeles International Airport, asked us to improve security at the LAX airport. This airport is very different from many other airports because it's got 8 inbound roads into the airport. There are 8 terminals, but there's not enough officers to manage security on all of the roads and all of the terminals. And Errol's concern was somebody driving a suicide truck into one of the terminals, as happened in Glasgow in 2007. And the question for us was, can we come up with a way of optimizing the limited security resources? Can we come up with a way using game theory to figure out where and when to place checkpoints, where and when to do patrols? So we came up with a game theoretic approach. And I'm going to describe this approach in just one slide, a lot of game theory, but hopefully I'll be able to show you the key intuition. So imagine this is a 2x2 game. This is just like a game of chess, except here real lives are at stake. So you have a defender, where the police unit is a small airport, and the defender could always be protecting Terminal 1. If that happens, then an adversary conducting surveillance will attack Terminal 2. The numbers here in the grid squares, the first number belongs as a reward to the defender, the second a reward to the adversary. So you can see here there's -1 to the defender, 1 a positive reward to the adversary. So this is not a good situation for the police. If the police were to always try to protect Terminal 2, an adversary conducting surveillance will now attack Terminal 1. Again, the adversary gets a positive reward, the police again get a negative reward. So any deterministic strategy the adversary could defeat. If the police were to use a mixed strategy, a randomized strategy, 60% of the time they're at Terminal 1, 40% at Terminal 2, an adversary conducting surveillance will only know that the police are there 60%, here 40%. What they will do tomorrow remains unpredictable. These kinds of games and essentially this randomization is the key idea that I want you to take away. Intelligent randomization for security resources. So it's trying to emphasize more important targets more, but yet randomizing and remaining unpredictable for an adversary conducting surveillance as to where the police are on the next day. We are not guaranteeing 100% security because in the real world there is no such thing. We are increasing the cost and uncertainty to an adversary in coming up with a plan of attack. So here's how we built the armor system at the Los Angeles International Airport. We start with a game matrix, and the payoff numbers here are essentially what would be the loss to the defender, which is loss of human lives if an attack were to be successful, or the gain to an adversary if an attack were to be successful. This is then fed into a game theory reasoning program, and the output of this program is what provides a probability distribution of being at different terminals at different times. So for example, here it's saying send a K9 patrol at 8 a.m. at terminals 2, 5, and 6 with a probability of 0.17. Send a K9 patrol at 8 a.m. at terminals 3, 5, and 7 with a probability of 0.33. And then from this, we generate an actual schedule. So for example, send team 1 to terminal 2, team 3 to terminal 5, team 5 to terminal 6 at 8 a.m. At 9 a.m., do something different. This is an actual schedule that the police then execute. So this was the first such system of game theory being used for real-life operational security. This armor system started operating at the LAX airport since 2007. There was a lot of news media around its application in the local news. You can see different kinds of weapons being captured, going into the airport. This obviously made the police department very happy. And also the Los Angeles, we were thrilled to receive commendation from the city of Los Angeles. So that's myself and my students. Until that point, we were fortunate enough to have received a best paper or two, but this was an entirely different kind of an honor, and we were very deeply honored by it. And Errol Southers even went to United States Congress to talk about what we had done. Well, the sound is not playing, but this is basically his testimony in a congressional committee talking about the improvements due to our system. And then there was news items like Newsweek saying Armor throws a digital cloak of invisibility because of our system. Of course, this led my colleagues at the next conference to ask me if I was working on a cloaking device. But this got the attention of the federal air marshals. These are the folks who assign air marshals to flights. You know, these are secret gun-carrying police on planes that you don't see, but they're there. And the question is how to allocate air marshals to flights. There are thousands of international flights every day, US air carriers. There's not enough air marshals to be on every flight. A flight going from New York to London on Christmas Day is much more important than some other flight. Improvement in the numbers of people captured without traveling without tickets. In LAX airport, the numbers of captures jumped fivefold from before to after Armor was deployed. So let me now switch to conservation as a second topic. So this is Murchison Falls in the national park in Uganda, and there's wonderful wildlife there. If you haven't been there, it's really a great sight to see. But there's traps that poachers set, thousands of them every year to maim and kill animals. The question is, can we somehow help the rangers figure out where the traps are set so that we can get to help to reduce the number of wildlife deaths? And so we divide up the park into these 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid squares. And we are trying to predict, you can imagine thousands and thousands of square kilometers of this park. We are trying to predict where poachers are going to set traps because there's a very small number of rangers that are patrolling the entire park. So we're trying to predict this probability of finding a snare in a grid cell using data like ranger patrol frequency and different features of the park. So we have 12 years of data from Uganda. For example, animal density in different squares, ranger patrol frequency, different things for each square like distances to roads and rivers and so on. So based on that, we are trying to predict where poachers will set traps. There's a machine learning system. I'm not going to describe how we built it. But of course, we can do a lot of tests in the lab and they don't care. The question is, can we make predictions actually in the wildlife park? So the first trial was a small-scale trial in 2016. So the Wildlife Conservation Society, our partners, asked us, can you make predictions in areas that we normally don't patrol? Because that would be valuable because you're now telling us to find snares in areas we normally don't go to. So we selected these two areas. So this is Queen Elizabeth National Park, and we told them to patrol these, the green dots that I'm showing you here. These don't overlap with the red dots. Red dots were where previously snares were found. So we are asking them to go to new areas and telling them that you're going to find snares or traps there. Now, this was done 1 month before a conference deadline, which meant that if we were able to find traps, then we would be able to write a paper. If not, there will be no paper. And so we sent rangers out. They would go out every month and every day and send us for this month report on what happened that day. So first few days, nothing. So we were getting a little disappointed. Then a report that they found an elephant with its tusks cut off. So this is very sad for this elephant, but at least told us that our machine learning system was pointing the rangers in the right direction. Then wonderful news that a whole elephant snare roll was found. So poachers were active in the area. They were killing elephants, but before they could kill the next set of elephants, we removed this elephant snare roll, potentially saving lives of elephants. Then a whole set of antelope snares were found and removed. Our papers have details on our hit rates versus base hit rates and so forth to show our system is superior. But one point here is that I had told my students that I'd buy them a free drink for every snare that was found. At this point, they said we can't take this anymore because there's too many snares being found. So this, of course, is a small-scale test. Can we do a larger scale test? So in 2 separate national parks, Queen Elizabeth and Murchison Falls, we selected 24 different areas of 9 square kilometers each. We predicted some to be high risk. We predicted you're going to find more snares here. And others we predicted low risk. You're not going to find any snares here. And these were infrequently patrolled areas. So we're not asking people to just go back and find snares where they found them before. And the question is, do our predictions work out? And it indeed turned out that where we predicted high risk, more snares were found compared to where we predicted low risk. And again, this high, medium, and low pattern where we predicted actually came to work out. So this has given us a lot of confidence that this system really works. But it is my belief that we have to stress test this system. And so our latest test was in Sripak National Park in in Cambodia, where tigers are being reintroduced after being decimated. And so we were just there last year in Cambodia. These are some pictures of us with the different rangers, poachers being captured. And again, we made predictions of where snares would be captured. And here you can see pictures of how, based on our predictions, they've captured these traps that were set up for capturing animals. And our predictions have again worked out where we predict high risk, more snares have been found. In fact, the snare capture rate has jumped fivefold from last year, from 2018 to once our system got into place. So this is really encouraging. And in fact, the head of WWF Zero Poaching effort, Rohit Singh, was saying, I'm super excited with these results. Let's get going on other countries too this year. And that's what we are doing now with Microsoft's AI for Earth. We're releasing our software to hundreds of national parks around the globe. And so this is something that should be coming online this summer. And so hopefully you will see the software being used in many national parks, allowing us to hopefully help protect wildlife across the globe. So far I've talked to you about this data to deployment pipeline where the predictions are based on past data. Can we do something with real live data that's coming in from the field? And for that, we've built a system called Spot to help detect poachers from drones flying in South Africa. So here's how the system works. So this is an NGO called Air Shepherd. They fly these drones in South Africa late at night, and they'll try to, in the Kruger National Park, try to beam this infrared video into a van. And there's a human being sitting there looking at the infrared video, and you can see here they're trying to find these human beings in these blurry videos late at night. And it's not easy. And so for them, we built this system called Spot, and it automatically detects these poachers from these videos. And it detects animals and poachers and alerts the humans to say, okay, it's time to call a ranger because we've detected these poachers. So this is something, again, we have delivered to this NGO so that they can start using it and hopefully, again, contribute to saving of wildlife. So in the remaining time that I've left, let me talk to you a little bit about public work we've done with public health, particularly with the homeless youth in Los Angeles. So there's 6,000 homeless youth who sleep on the streets of LA. The rates of HIV/AIDS among them is 10 times the rates of normal housed population. So homeless shelters try to educate them about the risks of HIV by selecting peer leaders. So essentially, they try to select a few people among the because you can't go and talk to all 6,000. So you select a few people, you talk to them saying, this is the risk of HIV, how to protect yourself. And the idea is that they'll talk to their friends will talk to their friends, and information will spread by word of mouth. And so this is real social network. This is face-to-face contact. This is not from Facebook, for example. And so this is, we developed this algorithm called Healer. Basic idea here is that there is some graph. This is the social network. And from there, we are selecting some peer leaders, people who will educate about HIV. And the objective is to spread information about HIV to maximum numbers of youth. And so to test Healer, this system in the field, we recruited 170 youth. 60 were recruited under Healer, 60 were recruited in another version of Healer, and 50 or 60 were in degree centrality, the more traditional approach, which is bring in the most popular youth, educate them about HIV. So in each case, we selected 12 peer leaders. So in each case, 12 of these youth were selected to educate them, and our colleagues from social work educated them about HIV. This is a day-long training session. And then the question is, among the non-peer leaders in this cohort, among people who we did not talk to HIV, how many got information about HIV because of the spread of information? So we selected 12 using our algorithm. They selected 12, the homeless shelter, using their method, which is this degree centrality. And we are trying to measure at the end of 1 month in the non-peer leaders who got more information. And the results here with Healer, our AI algorithms, there's 75% of the non-peer leaders who we did not talk to get educated about HIV. Whereas with degree centrality, the more traditional approach, only 30% or so got educated. So there's a big difference in the amount of information that was spread about HIV. Okay, information was spread, but did they actually act on it? And so we also looked at whether the HIV testing rates went up, and indeed what we find is that with the AI algorithms, the HIV testing rates have gone up significantly. You can see 30 to 40% of the people have started testing for HIV with our algorithms when we're selecting the peer leaders and getting information to spread, versus none in the degree centrality condition, because the amount of people who got informed itself is very small. So this has again led to our partners being very excited about rolling this program out. So this is Alison Hertz, the executive director of Safe Place for Youth, a homeless shelter in Los Angeles, talking about how this is. Since there is no sound, I'm going to skip over this. We have completed a study of 900 youth at 3 different homeless shelters in Los Angeles, and we are now evaluating these results in terms of the effectiveness of our healer algorithms. The last part of my presentation is going to be in tuberculosis. This is work that we are doing here in India. As you may know, tuberculosis is a major worldwide disease. In India itself alone, 500,000 people die every year. 3 million are infected. And so we are focused on this challenge of non-adherence of TB patients. So they are supposed to take these medicines for 6 months, but people drop off of treatment. Now, there's digital adherence technology that is used to track whether people are taking their medicine or not. So the way this works is that at the back of each pill pack, there's a phone number, and the patient is supposed to call this phone number every time they take this pill. So this way, a health worker will know whether a person has taken the pill today or tomorrow or so on, because they got a phone call from this person. Now the question is, if for example, somebody didn't take their pill, didn't call the health worker, then they know that this person hasn't taken their pill. The health worker can go to their home and say, hey, you need to take your medicine, or call them or intervene on them in some fashion. But that's already pretty late. And you could imagine a health worker has a caseload of 100, 125 patients. It's not easy to chase down all these different patients. If we can predict ahead of time who's going to default, then that would save their burden. So this is the task that we are looking at. Can we predict ahead of time who's going to drop off of these medicines before even they start missing their calls? If we can make those predictions, then we would be able to tell them these are high-risk patients, pay attention to them. That way they can make sure they can manage their workload more efficiently. And so we are trying to predict risk of adherence, risk of non-adherence based on the phone call pattern. So we have when did the patient call and whether they called or not for every day for, say, some number of days. And we are saying in the next week whether they will adhere or not. So we have data of 15,000 patients, 1.5 million phone calls. This is work done with Everwell. And so we are trying to predict this risk. So you can see here there's 4 patients. Patient 1 didn't call on day 1, called on other days. Patient 2 called on first 2 days, didn't call on day 3, called on day 4, didn't call on day 5, and so forth. And so you can imagine hundreds of patients, 100 patients like these, and based on this phone call pattern and the time of this call, we are trying to predict and say that, okay, these are the 2 patients who are high risk, the red ones. These are the ones you have to pay attention to, because these are the ones who are going to drop off of treatment. And so that's what we've been doing, and then we can prescribe who to intervene on and actually intervene in the field. And so in our predictions, indeed, it turns out that we are more effective compared to their baseline approach in terms of making predictions of high-risk patients, both in terms of true positives and reducing the numbers of false positives. And so this is a system that we hope to be able to test this spring or summer in Mumbai, and hopefully this will allow us to show the effectiveness of these predictions for high-risk patients. So Bill Thies, who's the co-founder of Everwell, pointed out that this work has a lot of potential to save lives. So I'll end here. I know it's late. Thank you for coming in and listening. I wanted to summarize some of the key points. I talked about AI and multi-agent systems research for social impact. This is work which goes in 2 ways, right? It's sort of trying to attain social impact, but simultaneously trying to advance AI research as well. And there's cross-cutting challenges that I looked at of how to optimize our limited intervention resources in 3 separate domains: public safety and security, and conservation and public health. And there are 2 unifying themes, so you will see here multi-agent systems reasoning, the use of data to deployment, and of course all the interdisciplinary partnerships that I talked about. So let me summarize some of the main lessons that we've learned from some of this work on AI for social good. So the idea is that we really want to go from data to deployment. We really want to achieve that social impact. Without that, it's not really AI for social impact. And so it's not just about improving algorithms, it's about actually attaining social impact in the field. It's important to that end to actually step out of the lab and go out into the field, because this kind of work cannot be done simply by sitting in the lab. It's important to embrace interdisciplinary work with social work, with conservation, and with other scientists. And lack of data is the norm, so we can't just say, oh, there's no data, we're going to put our hands up, nothing's going to work. This is lack of data, incomplete data, limited data. This is going to be part of this project strategy for all of the work in AI for social good. So I'll end here by saying AI has tremendous potential for improving society and fighting social injustice. And I'm happy to collaborate. So if you have any, if you want to follow up, you can look me up on email and send me an email. Thank you for coming to this talk. I know it's late, but thank you for patiently listening. And I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you.